Okay. So people are starting to join now. We'll wait a moment so that we can reach a decent number to begin.
What's up, people joining? What up? I think I'm just gonna change coffee mugs here every time I drink.
Oh, gee.
By the way.
Oh, gee, here we go. Just make sure there's nothing in it. All right.
Right. This one says the sun will rise again. That's for all the lovers out there. This one says you are some kind of wonderful. This one says world's greatest me. I just happen to have a bunch of coffee cups.
I'm just getting a sense here of how you set yourself up in your household. You have these mugs reminding you of certain things.
Hey, what's up, Atlanta? What's going on? I am
ATL
single with no kids, bro. I'm single with no kids, living in a house with,
Yeah, that'll do it.
Coffee mugs can live what they want. Rashawn, I know we're supposed to make this really professional here, politics and prose. Forgive me.
This is your event, so you know.
Oh, in that case.
Oh, I was gonna say. Okay, here we go.
What's up, Cali? What's up, Murfreesboro? I see you guys dropping in.
Well, as people continue to join, I will get started because everyone is here to see you, not me.
New York, Springfield, Illinois. What's up? Florida, represent.
We got a nice roll call going on here.
Kansas City, Chiefs.
Kansas City, yo. Kansas City.
I didn't get to see the Washington game last night, but I heard you call it out.
Here I come. Kansas City. All right. We got a little bit of the DMV in the house. Very nice.
Arizona, what up?
Okay.
Virginia, Arlington, Virginia.
Arlington.
They have a great theater company
say
there.
Arlington, Virginia, like the same way you say Harvard.
Oh, Arlington.
Arlington.
St. Paul. Chicago, represent.
All right. Please continue to drop those locations and we'll give you some shout outs when we have time. But I am going to get started because
before this gets too far afield where it should be.
Too far of a tangent here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another PNP Live. My name is Bashan. I am part of the event staff with Politics and Prose. Before we do get started, I have a couple quick items to mention. First, that anytime during this event, you'll be able to go to the chat section where you'll be able to find a link which will take you directly to the Politics and Prose website, where you can purchase a copy of I Take My Coffee Black. We, of course, highly encourage you to do so, and we thank you for any patronage, as that helps us to continue to bring you these live events. In addition to that, throughout this event, if you would like to ask a question of either of our guests, we would ask you to place it in the Q&A box just to help us keep everything organized and make sure that we can see your question when it comes time for the question and answer period towards the end of the program. And I Take My Coffee Black, Tyler tells hilarious stories from his own life as a Black man in America. He talks about growing up in a multicultural community and realizing that he wasn't always welcome, how he quit sports for musical theater, that's where the girls were, to how Jesus barged in uninvited and changed his life forever. It all started with a Triple F.A.T Goose jacket, to how he ended up at a small Bible college in Santa Cruz because he thought they had a great theater program. Surprise, they didn't. Throughout his stories, he also seamlessly weaves in lessons about privilege, the legacy of lynching and sharecropping, and why you don't cross Black mamas. He teaches readers about the history of encoded racism that still undergirds our society today. By turns witty, insightful, touching, and laugh out loud funny, I Take My Coffee Black paints a portrait of Black manhood in America and enlightens, illuminates, and entertains, ultimately building the kind of empathy that might just be the antidote against the racial injustice in our society. Tyler Merritt is an actor, musician, comedian, and activist behind the Tyler Merritt Project. For over 20 years now, he has spoken to audiences ranging from elementary school students to nursing home seniors. His television credits include ABC's Kevin Probably Saves the World, Netflix's Messiah and Outer Banks, Disney Marvel's Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Apple TV's upcoming series Swagger. Tyler's viral videos, Before You Call the Cops and Walking While Black, have been viewed by over 60 million people worldwide, with Before You Call the Cops being voted the #1 most powerful video of 2020 by Now This Politics. Mr. Merritt is in conversation today with Mr. Michael Steele, the former Lieutenant Governor of Maryland and the former chairman of the Republican National Committee. He is the author of Right Now, 12-Step Program for Defeating the Obama Agenda, which is a call to arms for grassroots America, and co-author of the Recovering Politicians 12-Step Program to Survive Crisis. Without any further ado, Mr. Steele, I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Bashan. And as you can see, Tyler, I'm into 12-step programs, and this is an opportunity to engage in just one more. I want to welcome everybody, and it is such a joy and such a treat to have this conversation. So let's just get right into it. I was asked, you asked me, in fact, what I thought of this book. And I said that I Take My Coffee Black was the best book that I've read in the last 10 plus years. And I wanted to assert then, and I'll assert again for those who are listening, this truth for me. It is the first book that I have read that I connected to in such a real way, because the stories you tell, the way you tell them, the way you experience them, I re-experienced it myself. They were very similar stories. I was a Black kid from the hood who avoided the gangs, got into theater and drama, loved musicals, sang in the choir, did church on Sundays. So why didn't you tell me we had the same mama? I don't understand.
I wish I knew, man. Let me say this first and foremost. Hey, welcome everybody who is watching. And yo, I'm kicking it with my boy Michael Steele right now. And if any of you all know Michael Steele, to know him is to love the dude. And so I'm honored to be here with you, bro. And let me just say this really quick, because I will forget. Yo, I want to invite you all. If you already have my book, or you're like, hey, I want to buy a Christmas present or something else, I want to invite you tonight before you leave to buy another copy, or 2 or 3 or 4 for Politics and Prose. During this time period of COVID and everything else, these bookstores have had to do everything they can to survive. And it would be I would be so grateful if you bought another copy or 2 from Politics and Prose tonight. That would be awesome. Anyways, why we have the same mama. My mama would probably have an issue with that.
Well, let's start a little bit at the beginning, because the thing about this book, it really is a narrative of your life. It is a reflection in many respects. It's a re-examination in many respects. It is gut-wrenching at times, where you have to confront certain truths about yourself, but then to express that openly. What was that journey like when you sat down and said, you know what, I'm just going to put it all here on print, and, or maybe I won't put it all on print, right? I mean, I'm sure you had that moment. What was that like for you to finally decide, this is it, this is my life, and I want to share it?
I think what's really tricky, man, with this book is if you haven't read it yet, it goes from me talking about experience of walking along with a white woman who experiences me in the street, to me talking about my failures and brokenness, and not just in a loose leaf kind of way where I'm just like, one time my dog died or something. Like, right. I go into talking about the struggles that I have with women and relationships, the struggles that I have with trying to put together God and sex, and just so many things all under the umbrella of being a Black man. And you hit the nail on the head, bro. Like, it was not one of those things where I just wrote it and felt like I'm cool, submitted it and smiled. Like, even to this day, the book's been out like 3 days now, and I keep going, I don't know if I made the right decision getting that proximity to people, you know? Because
Right.
I tried to like, I really bet on the idea of if you come close to me, you can grow empathy. And in that, I let people really, really close.
Well, let's start with a really close encounter of the typical kind, particularly for Black men. In the first part of the book, you open up, and this is what I love about it. You don't spare the emotion. You hit people in the gut and you say, hey, this is real and this is what it was. In the chapter, If She Only Knew, it starts out, this woman saw me as a threat, clear and present, and clutched her pearls and locked her doors. That moment ruined my walk. As I walked back home, I began trying to process this, and the thought came to me, if she knew me, maybe she wouldn't be afraid. But even more than that, if this woman knew me, I mean, if she really knew me, I bet she might even like me. Oh, but more than that, I bet I could make her smile. I bet I'd make her feel valued. I bet I'd make her feel joy at just being alive. I bet I'd be one of her favorite people. If she knew me, I bet she would love me. And this was a reflection on an encounter you just had with an elderly white woman sitting in her truck who saw you coming towards her car. Not only did the woman panic, lock doors, and roll up windows, but she screamed, oh my God.
Right.
And this, as you walked away from that car, you reflected. And this is the reflection you came to. Not anger, not, well, you know, I gotta smack the, no, you went inside and said, let me check me. Oh, I'm all right. I'm all right. Okay. Because if she knew me, she'd be all right too. How was that experience in writing that part?
You know, I kind of talked about going through the different stages. And one of the stages that I had was the idea of going, maybe it's just sheer biology. Like, she just doesn't know. Like, she doesn't know Black people in her life. She can't experience, you know, she maybe doesn't have a Black brother or sister or friend or whatever. Like, that was kind of my first step. Like, if she only knew me. And then by the time I got home, I started going through the steps of grief. I started going through anger and being like, nah, this is bullshit, you know, and skip her. Like, this isn't my fault. I shouldn't have to continue to make myself smaller. If you are watching this and you haven't read any of the book, I talk about how I took off my bandana before I crossed the street so that I could show my head. I took off my sunglasses so she could see my eyes. I took off my headphones so that she knows that I can hear her. I did every possible thing I could do. And in the book, I talk about, I started thinking, just be the Black Mr. Rogers. Just smile and be the Black Mr. Rogers. But that didn't help. And so by the time I got home, I was angry. It had gone from, this was just a biological thing she didn't understand, to anger, to me having a conversation with God going, this isn't fair. And then finally it turned into, if she knew me, she would know that I was on some king-ish. And what kings have to do sometimes is make themselves less than for their people so that they can have a better understanding. That's something that Jesus did. He would stop sometimes and go, wait a minute, let me look at this whole picture. And at first, man, I got in trouble with some of my Black friends going, man, why are you trying to you don't have to humanize yourself to an old white woman. I was like, I know what I do and don't have to do. I am very aware, but I will do this. If I can save a life, because her freaking out and calling the cops, as you know, this isn't a matter of just me being insulted. That can end up with my life being gone. Right. This is a life or death matter for me. And so for me, humanizing myself, making myself less than in the big picture became a whole lot less about me. And it became about us. And you kind of feel that in the midst of this book. because I end up being honest in a way that I still kind of regret a little bit. Michael?
But it's the honesty. The honesty is the important part, because again, what struck me as I would go from chapter to chapter is I was walking with you. I was growing older with you. I remember what elementary school was like, and young honey over in the corner that I looked at and go, oh man, she's so sweet, but did not have the rap or the game to get close to say hello. I was that guy, right? Tall, lanky, afro out to here with a part on the side. People looked at me like, dude, have you ever heard of GQ? I mean, but back in the day, that 70s was cruel, baby. It was cruel. But I walked that step with you, and you're right. You go through those stages, but what that opening chapter does is set the stage for the rest of your life, or your life up to this point, where that moment of having to confront the fear, the racism, the ugliness of another individual, and then you having to rationalize for yourself your behavior.
Yeah.
It translated into your relationship with women. It translated in your relationship with very dear friends, such as he who shall not be named, and we'll talk about him in a moment. You find yourself walking that life with this woman still kind of shackled to you in a way. No?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I have this moment, Michael, where I talk about how if this woman only knew everything that I had to do to get to this moment, if she knew the failures, if she knew how much I tried to pour out love in my life, if she knew all the things that I had struggled with, I had this really almost looking back at my life moment where I thought to myself, and I say it in the book, if she knew that I love my mother more than anything, and that my mother's words are like cocoa butter to my soul, if she knew this, if she knew that if she knew that I had been beaten down, if she knew that I was on my way walking to a bench that had rebuilt me, then maybe she would have a little bit of a better understanding. But you're right. I carried in that moment, and throughout the rest of the book, I kind of carry this thing with me of if I let you in, will you still accept me? If I let you in, will you still if I let you in, will you understand where my heart is? And my hope is that if I do, that we really can birth some empathy for each other. And that's really what I bet on in the book.
So you raised your mom. So let's talk about mom a little bit, because there's nothing like the relationship between, first off, a mother and a son, but there's always something a little extra sweet and special about that relationship between a Black mom and her Black son. And you have this way of describing her that is at once the carrot and the next thing you know, there's a stick. Tell us a little bit about Jerry. Tell us a little bit about mom and dad. I mean, because your dad's an Air Force guy. My dad was an Air Force guy. And so again, one of those parallels that I connected with you on. My mom's from the South, you're from the South. Tell us a little bit about mom, because that's the other side of this story that shapes Tyler Merritt in this book.
Something that I didn't realize when I wrote this book and I got to the end of it, man. And I talked about this last night when I did a live book reading. I didn't realize until the end of the book, bro, looking back, how many times my mom was pivotal in the moments of my life, and it took me writing a book and going back and delving into that to really get into that moment of looking at my mom and going, yo, when I didn't want to go to that performing arts school, you knew better and you made me go. When I was debating on if I want to take my band to Nashville, you said, go, and do that thing. And then something else that my mom did, man, and I talk about, and I got so emotional last night talking about this. I'm going to try not to do this on this chat right now. But y'all listen, you're going to read this in the book. There's a period of time where I go through some things at a church, and it was on my own doing. I had some serious mess ups on my own, and I felt like I was done. I felt like my value, like I was done. And it was over for me. I couldn't have any sort of future or voice, or anybody wouldn't want to listen to me. And I was sitting on my bench, man, here in Nashville, and I called my mom, and I called her not in tears. I just called her like, hey. And by the end of this conversation, I was sobbing, man, because my mom, because like moms do, are like, boy, I know you. Do you know who you are? You are my child. Mm-hmm. I've known you from I knew you before the womb. Don't let someone else say who you are. I know who you are. And my mom lifted, like, she wasn't physically doing it, but she lifted me out of the ashes. And that is the kind of mother that I have. And not until I sat down to read this book did I really look back and realize how moving she had been. And my father, being a military man, by the way, this book was 153 words. And you know, by writing books, my editors were like, too long, bro. And they cut it down to like 93,000. But there's a lot more of my father in the extended version. But my dad, I talk about how there's a scene at a baseball game and he tells me to go hit a home run.
Yeah, yeah.
And my dad is a military guy where he doesn't, and from Alabama, Utah, Alabama, he just doesn't have that thing in him that is an encourager, right? He doesn't have that thing in him that is naturally like, attaboy. That's just not, because he didn't get in the military. He didn't get it when he was picking cotton. Like, he didn't get any of that. So, and then me, my love language is words of affirmation, right? And I just didn't get, my mom was always like, that's what you're supposed to do. And my dad was like, you are my son and you should be great. So anything that I did, so this baseball story, he tells me to go hit a home run. And I took it as an order. And we were behind to win the game. I go and I hit this home run and I'm running around the bases, Michael, thinking to myself, I did what you wanted me to do, Dad. I did what you, and I don't remember the people cheering. I don't remember the team saying, go ahead. All I remember is my dad being the third base coach and me wanting to run to him and him maybe hug me and say, attaboy. But instead, he just looked at me like, this is what we do. Yep. And when I went to go write this book, I had to confront him and say, yo, Dad, you were a powerhouse in my life, but my desire to never stop and to want to continue and go on and be great is kind of a dysfunction birthed from me. You never saying good job.
Right.
You know? And I was like, and I'm going to put this in the book. And I do. And I do.
You do.
So those are my parents. And they're both great. My dad, they're both dope. And he's so excited he's in the book. I thought he was going to be mad, but instead he was like, I'm famous.
Yeah, right. Well, that's Dad. Yeah, that's Dad. At the end of the day, it's that, how's my profile? You get my good side.
Right.
Just make sure you get
he's
it right.
on the audiobook too. So he,
Lord.
he feels like he's,
So you gave him an acting part as well. God bless you. You know he's going to be looking for some royalties. I'm just saying.
If you all don't have an audiobook, my audiobook is, listen, first of all, I'm not trying to push people for not buying the book here. Y'all need to buy the books from Politics and Prose, but also buy the audiobook because my mom is on it, my dad is on it, and we talk about that very thing. On the audiobook, my mom literally says to me, because I call her, and my audiobook is so different than anything you ever heard. And I call my mom, and at the end of the conversation, she's like, so am I going to get paid for this? I'm like, I got to go, Mom.
Well, look, Mom want to know. So tell us how Mom backdoored you into theater. Because she did. She bum rushed you right up into theater.
Yeah, my mom accidentally, because she wanted to seem like she had it all together, never in a million years would my mama let me stay for an after-school program that lasts like 3 hours, because I was a latchkey kid. There's no way in the world she was going to let me stay for theater. But one day she decided to show up to going to school day, bring the parents to school day or whatever. And she walked out of this theater class, which I got into on accident. And the teacher says to her, Tyler is so great. He's really talented. Why didn't he audition for the play? And my mother said, boy, why did you not audition for this lady's play? And I'm thinking to myself, like, because there's no way. And she's like, no, you will be auditioning for that play next time. Because, she's trying to be the mom. And she looks over at Mrs. Seaton and is like, ma'am, you don't have to worry about that. My son will be auditioning for that play.
You know damn well that if you came home from school and said to your mom, I'm going to audition for a play and it's going to require 3 hours after school, she was like, the hell you are?
No way that was going to happen. But then I went and auditioned, got cast, and I came back home, Michael, and I said to her, Mom, I got cast in the play. Now it had been like a month. She had forgotten, bro. I said, Mom, I got cast in the play. And she was like, what play? I was like, the play you told me to audition for. What audition? Mom, And I was like, I'm going to have to stay after school for 3 hours. The hell you're going to have? And I was like, you remember you talked to the teacher? And she was like, well, and the next thing you know, man, I spent the rest of my high school years staying after school for theater productions, man. That singular moment of my mom trying to be mom to my theater teacher shifted my whole world, which is in the book, and I tell it in a much funnier way.
Well, but so it's interesting because you said something that is really kind of a theme in the book, and you actually reference it as this idea of the shifting of life, things that happen in your life. One door open, another closes. Talk a little bit about how that narrative plays itself out in this book, where a decision made, a moment not taken, or a moment leaned into, change the course in the direction of a relationship or
Sure.
A job opportunity or an academic, moment.
I think so. We all kind of are just walking through life every day, and rarely do we get forced to look back. Like, rarely is there a situation that comes into our life where you have to stop all the stuff that's going on and you're forced to look back at how you got to where you are. And so when I started writing this book, it forced me to do that. And it reminded me of the movie, and I talk about this in the book, it reminded me of an old movie that I feel like only 10 people in the world have seen, called Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow. Yeah. And I want to invite all of you, if you haven't read the book, there's a chapter that I start off and I explain what a black card is, where I talk about how a black card is a card all black people get the moment they're born, and it's always in the risk of being taken from them. Yes. Like if a black person says, yo, I don't care for that Jay-Z song, but I really like that Vanilla Ice song, another black person will be like, yo, man, you're gonna have to come up off that black card. Right. Right? And so I explain that.
You may have to pay some dividends on that one.
Right. So I then go in to say, I'm in risk of losing my black card because I'm about to go in hard on Gwyneth Paltrow right now. And so I go in and talk about her, and I talk about Sliding Doors. And there's this moment where she could either catch a train or not catch a train. And it had me going back through all of my life, man. And there's moments in my life where I talk about meeting one of my best friends, Shannon, and I tell a story about her, and she's kind of mad about how I told the story because she sounds like a stalker in the story. But she decides to show up at my house one day because I told her really loosely at Safeway one day, we'll have to hang out. She actually comes to my house, shows up. All of my roommates are like, who is this girl? She shows up, but we end up becoming best friends because if she didn't that day drive by my house and go, I'm just going to show up at Tyler's, it would have never happened.
Right.
There's moments like the moment I walked upstairs at my college and saw these two white dudes playing guitar upstairs. And because I was curious, I just went upstairs. And I think about that moment all the time, man. And that's when my band started. I went upstairs and was like, what are you guys doing? I didn't know anything about rock music. They literally were like, we could be Hootie and the Blowfish. And I was like, what's a Hootie? And what's
the Blowfish?
What's a Blowfish? You know what I'm saying? But that moment of me walking up those stairs shifted my whole life. It's why I live in Tennessee. It's why I love Counting Crows. And so all of us have those moments, but rarely are we able to look back on them. And I try to challenge the reader to have those moments to figure out what it is that brought you to where you are.
Counting Crows, huh? All right.
I love this economy.
You can give back half that black card, but that's okay. Okay.
Bro, hey, Michael, let me tell you, bro. Hey, let me tell you, dog. Let me tell you.
I mean,
First
is
of all,
it like 1 crow, 2 crow, 3?
Listen, this is actually a really good time because we are limited on time here in this. Michael and I, we did a podcast with the Michael Still podcast. The first half of it came out today, where we are a lot less candid. We kind of go in. So if you enjoy this, please go watch Michael Still podcast after this, and then the second episode will be out next week.
Yeah.
But we go at it. We really go at it. But dude, I went to this County Crows concert just recently here in Nashville, and I love him, and I go hard when I'm at that show. And I was like the only black dude in the outside the people serving drinks, right? Man, you would have thought.
I'm sorry. I had the Temptations, the Supremes, Jay-Z.
I'm thinking every word, man. And these white people around me, like, this is an interesting African American here today.
Yeah, okay, so I'll pray for you on that one. But again, it's all part of the narrative, and that's what I love about this book. The stories you tell are, in one sense, really typical Black family life experience stories. In other respects, they're not, and such as the encounter with the elderly white woman in her truck. Your encounters with God through faith are, in one sense, very typical, but then again, not. I mean, you have these experiences that shape the person. And what I took away from a lot of these various moments, these vignettes in your life, was the multi-dimensional nature of Tyler Merritt, right? Which is also a reflection of the multi-dimensional character of Black people. Talk about that.
Yo, I open up the book with saying, my dedication is saying, we are not monolithic. And this book is dedicated to all of our beautiful stories. And yo, you're a good example of that, man. You are a Black Republican that was head of the Republican National, Chairman Brent, you alone are a testament of how we as Black people are more than one thing. Right. And although we are not monolithic, I make jokes in the book about things that all Black people do in the big picture. But when it comes down to it, we all have our individual stories. And this is one of the problems I really do believe with America right now. And attempting to look at an individual by just what they look like, not knowing who they are, what might surprise them. And man, what I love about HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities, is you can go to HBCU now and go on campus and see every type of Black person in the world. Like, you see a plethora of just Black culture there, from individuals that were raised in the South and have only experienced the South, to Black people who have traveled all around the world. I'll say this, man. My oncologist, I had cancer for a little while. I'm fine, people. Right. But my oncologist was this Australian. He was an Asian man from Australia, the tiny Asian man. He walked into the room, a tiny Asian man in his like Vanderbilt-ness, and he starts talking with this Australian accent. And I was like, what? And then he goes into talking about how he loves cricket, right? And it was just such an example of even me looking at this man with an expectation of who he is. Yeah. And he opens his mouth, and even I had to catch myself and go, we are so much more than what we appear. And so I try to make that point in the book.
How do people, in your estimation, from your life experiences, how do people get that wrong, so wrong? Why is it that everybody else can look around and see in other cultures and communities, ethnicities, and see and really appreciate that diversity, that sort of, that thing that makes them who they are. But when it comes to our experience, our 401-year experience here on these shores, our experiences even to this day in Africa, for example,
right?
Why are we viewed so one-dimensionally, in your estimation?
I think it has to do with the lack of proximity that people have to Black people in America, and oftentimes the register. I had a person just message me who's reading the book. She messaged me just before I got into this call, and she talked to me about how her parents were raised in this town that 20 miles out of this town that I talked about in the book. And it tracks in her family. Like she can see the racism that just scoops down all the way through history with her. And it just makes me think your parents didn't know any Black people. Your parents' didn't know any Black people. And they begin to pull what they think based on conversations they've had, based on what their parents say, based on their own personal fears. Look, man, it's like the LGBTQ community. It's like right now what we're walking through with people having fear of queer individuals.
Right.
Yeah, you are afraid of gay people because you don't know any.
Right.
And
right.
as soon as you get to know, as soon as you with your ugly male self think to yourself, every gay man wants to have sex with you, and realize that you ain't that cute, like you will have a different appreciation for things once you get close to them. And similar to Black folks, man,
Yeah, but the only other thing they need to do, they do go and talk to cousin Herbert over there, who's been gay forever and a day,
forever.
Right? and you went to the beach with cousin Herbert, and y'all were in the bungalow together and shared the room. Ooh.
You just didn't know. You love somebody that you didn't know. But we as Black people carry this thing with us that is so distinct that you can draw your conclusions on how you want to feel. But get to know, listen, I talked about this in the book. Black people are just so damn great.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Yes. And if you follow the Tyler Merritt, if you're watching this, you follow the Tyler Merritt Project, I feel like everybody's great. But just let me have this moment. The fact that I was on TMZ recently, and they asked me about hope. And I was saying, I don't have, as a Black man, I don't have the privilege to not be hopeful, And there are so many Black people that walk this world who have been through the dumps, the Black people that have been through nastiness and still find a way to be beautiful and great and wonderful. And I tell people this all the time, Michael, if you want to argue about not having proximity, go to a Black church. Because unlike a white church, when Black people walk into a white church and people are like, oh, well, does he know what church he's in?
That's different.
When a white person comes to a Black church, Black folks are like, oh, you come on, let's see if you can clap on beat. Welcome into this place that for us, and this is important, the white church that you came to has to have a social justice committee and has to vote on whether or not they're going to talk about George Floyd. Welcome to the Black church where Sunday morning is the social justice committee. Welcome to a Black church where we are not afraid to pour out who we are. And I only say that specifically to say, when people are looking to, if you say to me, hey, I don't know any Black people, Google a Black church and go and spend a Sunday. Open up your proximity and get away from that fear. I'm preaching. I apologize.
I know. No. Well, you can preach because people may not know that you were the voice of the Bible for a whole bunch of little white kids, part of the National Baptist Convention. So that's a conversation. Yeah, Mommy, guess what I heard today?
You realize that I still have one of the. I have a lot of people that follow me because of Gospel Project, right? Yep. And I did that for years, and this has been a coming out party, man, a little bit, because so many people, especially that work in church, only know me as the Gospel Project guy.
Right.
And I really went through a little thing, Michael, where I had to go, God, you're about to buy a book that I cuss. I had to have a rule where I only cuss once every chapter. And sometimes I broke the rule, and I don't know how you see me, but I'm going to let you know all of me in this. And it's a sticky situation, man, which let me say, that's another kind of tone with this book, is I talk about how I become really open about faith. Right. And my own God experience.
Yeah, you share yet that journey, which is oftentimes, like love, a very difficult journey to share, not just with someone else, but with yourself, because you got to be honest about your relationship with God. And it's like you have to be honest about your relationship with the woman or the man you love.
I really believe now that a lot of people don't even want to say they're Christians because there's so many negative things that are attached to that. And then if you say you are, there becomes this expectation. Like as soon as you say that you're a follower of God, you can't be real. You can't, because people look at you and go, oh, you're supposed to be a certain way.
Right.
And I had an interview this morning with a gospel, like a guy who does mostly Christian stuff, and he was writing for a Christian article.
Right.
And he goes, I read your book, man, and you really put aside the whole of ways Christians are supposed to be. He was like, you really kind of go in on being real. And I said, dude, if I'm gonna exist as somebody who said that they had an experience with God, I have to be real. Yeah. And one of the reasons we fall so hard is because we have all these people that are fake because they feel like they have to be. When in reality, us who really follow Christ, man, like legitimately, we're just trying our best to just keep it real as much as we can and try to fall and get back up, man.
Well, and that's what part of the path that Christ gave us. He told us that's how it was going to be. We fall down, we get back up. That's what we do, and we do it in faith. So, one other kind of sticky part of your book, a little conversation piece. So you and the ladies seem to have a, I was thinking of this song, Mrs. Jones, we got a thing going on. and oh, Mrs. Smith, you got a thing going on too. Samantha, but it started off with a little white girl, and and it's kind of been a hell of a ride ever since when you were 6th grade.
Yeah. Hey, Bashan, I'm watching the clock here, bro. It's 7:45. It's almost time for us to close this out. I'm just saying. I'm the reason why I'm saying this is because I don't want to get into girls right now. I don't want to have to. I don't know everybody in this room. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what ex-girlfriend is chilling in this room right now.
Oh, so this is your way of saying this part of the program shall be interrupted due to other priorities.
No, I'll say this. I'll say this for everybody who's on here.
I'm listening.
First of all, we talk more in the Michael Steele podcast, which we go a little bit more in depth about girls, and I break it down in the book about women almost to a fault, and not about what y'all women do, but what y'all do to me that I've then in turn done to you. So please dig into that. I know this is such a limited time. This is what Michael Steele and I said before we started this. We were not going to have a problem filling up. This could have been 3 hours.
Yes. Because I got boatload of notes. My cliff notes on your book have cliff notes. So
right. We could go on and on and on. So forgive all of you that are in the room that we're cutting short. We are going to try to respect everybody's time. Rashawn, take it, bro.
Yes, sir. I will take this cue. And again, we have about 15 or so minutes. So if you would like to try to get a question in, drop it in the Q&A box, and I will get started here. So I'll try to, well, there was one, but now I don't see it. So let's go here from the top now. Okay. So I guess this one can go to both of you. Jacqueline asks, what are your thoughts regarding the Capitol Hill rally tomorrow? I guess if you have any.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick. I said this yesterday on Nicole Wallace's show, that when you stop, everybody needs to stop in this moment, because we didn't on January 6th, we can tomorrow because of January 6th. And realize this, I grew up in Washington, D.C., so I know this from the real. All the groups in the world that have come to my hometown, our nation's capital, and protested and complained and marched and preached, we've never had to call out the National Guard and put up fences and station police officers before they showed up. We have to do that tomorrow. And to all of my fellow Republicans, I say to you, what does that say about what you're supporting and what you're advocating when you push out the big lie and when you continue to fester in Trumpism? What does that say? That our law enforcement and police and security officials have to go to that level of preparation, because not about exercising your First Amendment rights, but because you are a potential danger to law-abiding citizens and to the very police officers and government officials that they protect. So that's what I have to say about tomorrow. And I hope 3 people show up and they get a ticket.
I'm going to let Michael Still take that. I'm going to let him rest on that for a couple of reasons. One, we coexist in our opinions on so many things. I just want to point out the fact that you get to hang out with Nicole Wallace, man.
It's my girl. I've known Nicole a long time. Good lady.
I know it's your girl, man. I love me some Nicole Wallace, bro. And you know, Joy's my girl, and we're homies. But man, can a brother get an introduction to Nicole Wallace?
We can work that out. We can work that out.
All right. I love the fact all y'all are getting to watch this moment here of me pouring out my Nicole Wallace love. What else we got, Bashan?
All right, here's one from Aisha. She says, as people are moved to action through this book, what is the one piece of action you would like to most see?
That's a fantastic question. I would say, I really truly believe that proximity creates empathy. And if you have empathy for somebody, that triggers love inside of us, right? And as played out as it may sound, multiple people have said to me from reading this book, they have said, yo, I feel like I have become a better person from reading this book. I'm all about being better people, but I want that better people to be connected to love, because I believe that love is a verb. Love is an action word. And if this book can ignite you to love more, it then goes past race. It goes past trying to see somebody who's different than you, either for religious reasons or this, that, or the other. But when you begin to walk in love in a true and honest way, Michael's a perfectly good example to me. I've known, although it seems like we go way, way back, we've only really known each other within this last year. And I feel like I love this brother. And it's that kind of hope, love, passion for other people that I hope this book will ignite in folks. When they close the book, they close it and go, okay, let's see who I can love better now. That's an excellent answer, by the way, Bashan. What else you got?
Yeah, I thought that was pretty good too.
I like that.
I took some notes on that one.
That's what I wrote down. The proximity leads to empathy. It's like a Jedi philosophy almost.
Mm.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
See?
Star Wars reference. And since you're on Star Wars, I want everybody to recognize Michael Still's background right there. It's from John Wick. All right. So all of you who think Michael is just this stuffy guy you see on MSNBC and whatnot, we bonded on John Wick before we got onto this call.
So, this is total John Wick Continental switchboard. Absolutely.
And also, just so you all know, Rashawn here, he's not just on here because he's Black and works in politics and prose. He chose this. He chose this moment to be here with y'all. Politics and prose didn't go find the Black guy to get up in this thing. All right.
That's true.
Let's get that clear.
That great answer leads to another question, and this one is from Cece. So Cece kind of goes in a little bit on that one. Her question is there really a lack of proximity to Black people? Full disclosure, she doesn't think there is the problem, or is it simply a decision to act like the woman in the car, like a conscious decision?
I will say this. I'm gonna give my opinion. I'm gonna say this first because simply put, you are correct. There are individuals who will choose to act however they want to act based on whatever reasons they want. There's individuals that got dark hearts and are just bad people. That exists. All right. To get real, I won't get too spiritual on it, but there are just some bad people, okay, in the world. But do not get it twisted. There are a lot of people in this world who do not have proximity to people of color, like physically do not have that sort of proximity. And I'm not talking about you see a Black person in your grocery store that you go, I'm not talking about I went to school with 5 Black kids. I'm talking about when stuff hits the fan, when George Floyd dies. Are you talking to your 3 white friends? Or are you having a true heart-to-heart with a Black person that you know closely? So that when some other person says something ignorant, you step in and go, no, wait a minute. That's just what you think about Black people. Let me tell you about some of the Black people in my life because I'm close to them. In fact, let me get a Black man on the phone. Like, there is a proximity issue in America. It's people not being close to one another. And I know, and it's in my book, man. I say this multiple times in the book. I've seen proximity work. I have seen people who have been one way and then are forced into proximity with somebody, and I have watched the change happen in front of my eyes. So on one level, I want to say, I feel you on there are some people that just have dark hearts, but don't get it twisted. We still live in a world where people, and they're not just Black people, proximity matters in all cases. Michael, do you want to say something?
No, I think that's exactly right. And you get into that at various stages in the book and sort of draw that out. So I think, CC will see that's part of that conversation, that proximity piece. But it also strikes me, just all these years I've been on this planet as a Black man, that whenever I get in some of these conversations with some of my white friends, the list of Black folks that they get to draw up is a hell of a lot shorter than the list of white folks I can rely, people I know. So it's just, to your point, proximity is not about, oh, there's one down the street, around the corner and through the woods, and you catch the next bus and there's their house. Proximity is about, as you talk about it in the book, is that moment where you're like this, they're right there, and they're there because you know them, and they're there because you can rely on them, and you can go to them and you can talk to them about these things.
Yeah, I had a friend say to me recently, they said, it kind of freaked me out because Bashad disappeared on us, but, oh, there you go. I had a friend say to me recently, she was a friend of a friend who read the book. And I think we may even talk about this on your podcast, but she was texting her friend who read the book, and her friend texted her back and said, I just finished reading this book, and I feel like I am so close to, like, he let me in so close that I almost feel uncomfortable. And she replied back like, in a bad way? And she said, no, not in a bad way. I'm just not used to being that close to my friends. Like
Right.
I have people in my everyday life that I don't feel like let me in that close. And she talked about how being that close, it led to empathy with her. And I think that matters, man. I'll say this real quick. I don't have kids, but my niece and nephew, Zoe and Declan, who I talk about in the book, I was always that dude that was like, nah, man, I don't want to see your niece or nephew picture of them, or I don't want to see your kids, let alone your niece and nephew.
Your niece
right?
and nephew.
Right. And so
Right.
but now that Zoe and Declan are in my life, I understand, and I'm an only child, so they're my, play niece and nephew. But now that they are in my life, man, I kind of get a little bit of an understanding what it's like to feel like you would give your life over for a child.
Right.
Something that I didn't understand before. And then if I didn't have them in my life, I just wouldn't get it. It's fair and it's okay to say there are just some things we don't understand because we have not experienced it. You don't have to have an answer for everything if you don't know. You don't have to have an opinion on what you think a Black man in America feels like if you've never met a Black man in America. It's okay to go, I don't know. I don't have that kind of proximity in my life. And then get some.
Damn.
I think that's part of the problem. Too many people have opinions without the understanding, but they're strong in those opinions.
Very.
Look at that. Bashan out here.
I know.
He's like, I work for politics and prose, but since we got all these Black folks in here, preach.
So we're running up against the end of our time, but I'll try to squeeze in a couple more. Let's go here, since this is the vibe that we're on, so to speak. So Judy asks, or she says, really, as a white woman, how could I better convince folks in my life who refuse to believe that racism and racial equality doesn't exist? Parenthetical, especially if I can't get them to read this book.
Oh man, you had to add on the read this book part, because I was about to say I wrote a book, and I also have an audio. The audio book's really easy to listen to, but
and links to that are in the chat as well from Politics and Prose. I'm sorry, continue.
All right, Michael, you want to take this?
No, I'll take it. I think part of it is helping people by your own words and deeds, how you express that, how you demonstrate to them, as we would say in the Catholic Church, part of our, when we talk about certain things, you do them gently, right? Which means, the goal is to bring you into a place where there's greater understanding and appreciation, not correction, not making someone feel bad because they think or believe or act a certain way, but softly, gently correcting their thinking, their understanding, their behavior. And I think, for you, that's one way to do that, of trying to help people in your world, in your life, come to appreciate the perspective that you have, that, there is racism and there are racists, and there are things and situations and times where that's expressed. But that doesn't mean that everybody is, and that everybody is, not. What it means is we have to better understand what it is we're looking at, and what it is we're hearing, and what it is we're feeling. When you see that young, strapping Black kid with his book bag slung over his shoulders, there are books in there. It's not a gun, right? And if he's wearing a hoodie, it's probably because it's either raining or cold. And so it's that understanding, I think, is a big part of the takeaway I got from this. As Tyler slams into these moments in his life, he when he falls back, it's like that scene in The Matrix, you know, that sort of slow motion, right? But you see all of that energy, that exchange of energy, and that's the important part. We've got to exchange that energy. We just can't cut it off and say, well, Grandma, I'm not talking to you anymore. No, well, you know, I understand Grandma and Grandma's experience, but Grandma's living in a different time and age, and so she gently needs to be brought into that. When you got your 20-something-year-old friend who's talking that crazy, then you know, you bring them along the same way so that they understand.
Yeah, and I would say this. What was this young woman's name? What was her name? Do you still have it there, Rashad? It's okay if you don't. We'll say her name was Susie.
Judy.
Susie? Judy. Yo, send me your address and I'll show up and meet your grandparents or these white people. Point me to the white people, Judy, and I will handle these white people. That's what it comes down to. In fact, I think I'm gonna get a shirt that says, bring me the white people. I will handle them. No, but seriously, like Michael said, bring me the white people. Seriously.
What's your job, sir? Well, I handle the white people.
They throw me in to handle the white people.
That's right. That's right.
But just really quick, I just wanted just to piggyback on that is people say to me, man, you will not believe how many times I hear, because I tend to deal gently, how many people say to me, why are you never angry, Tyler? Or you're so approachable because you're not the angry Black man. And I'm like, I'm a Black man in America. We stay angry. It's like the Incredible Hulk. I've never made this comparison before. I've never until this moment made this comparison.
But it works. I know where you're going. It works.
Why didn't I write this in the book? Because this is so good. Listen, if you're in this room and you're about to write a book about Black folk, don't steal this. This is being recorded. But it's like the Incredible Hulk in the Avengers when he says, my secret is that I'm always angry, you know?
Right.
I kind of stay angry. I stay on the edge, but I have to make a decision every single day on how I'm going to communicate to the people around me. And being Black is just a tag I live with. I don't have the privilege to just be angry all the damn time. Right. I can't get forward in life that way. I can't be a Karen. Like, I can't be, you know? And no offense to anybody named Karen on here, but I can't, I don't have the privilege to be that. So the reason why I say that is I would invite you, my white friends, to think about the kind of care, gentleness, and loving persuasion that we have to kind of deal with every single day in our lives as people of color, sometimes just to make it out of the grocery store. You know what I mean?
You know where that's symbolized in the book is it literally in the first chapter where you describe taking off things, you know, pulling the hoodie off and taking the headphones off, taking the sunglasses off, basically changing your nature, your character to engage with this white person you don't even know. Black people have been doing that for over 400 years. We have to change who we are. We can't express. We've seen it with the current vice president of the United States. We saw it with Barack Obama. Barack Obama kept an even temperament because the last thing he could show in public was his anger. The way a white president could show at some national event or some horrible event that occurred within a community. He couldn't show that side. He couldn't show, because anger is also a form of empathy. It's not just lashing out in a destructive manner. It is showing your emotion that I am as disturbed and bothered by something as you are.
Right.
And
right.
you take us there right at the beginning of the book. You right at the beginning, like I'm stripping down about to just across the street in front of this damn white woman. And then she still screams, "Oh my God!" She's still afraid of me. you know, in my barest self. And that to me is so, and we folks, we get into a lot of this in the podcast. So check out the Michael Steele podcast. It's up now. And where we really get into a fuller, more graphic expression of of what that's like.
let me run this. Let me try to close this out with Sean. One, because you were actually at work, and me and Michael just
brothers got to go back to work.
Right. He's like, this is actually my job while y'all just up here chilling. Did you? I wanted to say one thing in closing, Bashan. Before, do you have a closing thing that you need to say as Politics and Prose?
I can just say, I personally have enjoyed this event, and on behalf of the bookstore, I thank you both for joining, as well as the audience. But by all means, you take it; it's your event.
Perfect. First things first, before I forget, I want to let everybody on that's in this room now. I want to thank you. As Jay-Z says, there are a million places you can be in the world tonight, but you're here with me, and I appreciate that. I really, really do. I want you to know, and I'm going to try not to get emotional about this. You could be anywhere, and you chose to hang out with 3 young Black men this evening on a Friday night who are expressing our love, our concern, our opinions, and you stuck with us. For those of you who have bought my book, I understand that we're in the middle of a pandemic and you paid money to read my words. That is not lost on me, okay? Spend some more and support Politics and Prose. That is not lost on me. It is also not lost on me that I got Michael Steele reading the words of my book, y'all. Like, that is not lost on me that I got my dude, Michael Steele, who we all get to see on TV, reading my book, being like, this issue's good. It's not lost on me. So I just want to give this last word of encouragement where you are, to who you are, where you are, wherever you are in the world right now. If you are wondering if that thing that you have burning inside of you needs to get done, it needs to get done because we need you. We need your specific individual you to do that marvelous thing that only you can do to help us change this world. I believe we can do it, but we need you. So you are not less. You could never be less. You are beautiful and made in the image of God. So go and do that thing, and let's change the world now, shall we?
Passa, thank you.
Hallelujah.
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 Hallelujah. And don't forget to pass the plate.
Thank y'all. Now let's get out of here. I have an Alanis Morissette concert to get to. Real honest.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that one too.
I know. Black card. I know.
I mean, you got Prose and Morrissey's. I don't know. It's just more than a notion.
Let's get out of here, please, Bashar. Please.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. To the viewing audience, thank you very much. Purchase a couple copies. Spread the love around.
There you go.
Right on. Thank you, Bashar, for helping us out tonight.
Thanks, Bashan.
The pleasure's been all mine. Thank you, gentlemen.